beautiful people. Just going to get this all set up. This is the boring part if you're watching on the replay, where we are just sharing everything in here to the Radiant Evolution Collective. If you're joining us on a replay, then you just get to watch us do the technical details. I think you should be able to share that though, Nicole. Amazing. Welcome. I'm Aurora Light. This is Radiant Soul Nicole. We are 2/3 of the Radiant Evolution Collective. Nina Infinity has been gallivanting around in nature and she is not back yet. So we're just going to call her in energetically. But also we have to start off with sharing that Nicole and I did as we always do. We call in sacred space. We take a few moments to drop in before we go live. We take some breaths. We set intention. And this live is about creating stability. And obviously we want to hold that in our field. But Gaia, who we work with a lot, was like, hey guys, let me offer you some super stable 7th and 8th dimensional energy right now. I want you to feel into the, 6th and 7th dimensional energy is where she was pulling us up. And it was really, really profound how the energy inside of us just shifted. It rose up from the earth and it felt like it went all the way through that middle column, pouring out and over us, just activating that torus field of energy flow. And suddenly everything from earlier in the day that I had been distracted by, bing, bop, boom, like all of the things, doing all the techie stuff, doing some Facebook ads for a Soul Embodiment Summit, it was gone. And I was present and we were here. Our hearts were turned on. And Gaia reminded me that we don't have to create stability on our own. It's not something that we have to do ourselves. We can connect in with her and to the earth and pull through that stable foundation that she is, as both the consciousness of the planet and that the element of the earth brings. So that was a really nice way to begin. I'm feeling so much better now. How about you, Nicole?
Yes, it's always such a lovely reminder. I get this the most when working with Gaia, that message that we don't have to do this alone, that she is like always here to help us and support us, and that yeah, being able to pull in those frequencies and messages from the future and work in that quantum realm in collapse time is such a magical ability that we have now. So we can use it more often and remember that, yeah, all we need to do is just connect in with Gaia every day. And I was actually talking about in my Instagram stories today about setting the intention and doing a body scan to bring us into our present moment and all of these things, and bring us into your body and bring us into that present so you can create what you want in the day. And those are those stability practices that can help build a strong foundation. And that one piece that I didn't talk about in my stories is the getting to do it with your guides, with your high self, and not just creating it yourself. So that is such an important key to manifestation. So I think we've talked about everything that we said we were going to talk about in our title already. We can be done.
Great. All right, we're done. That's it. That's all we need to know. There's more codes that are going to come through. But yeah, it does get to be that easy when you get out of your own darn way. I think this is what we need to talk about first, is we as humans oftentimes let the ego drive and we go, I have to do this myself. This is on me. I have to manifest. I have to create. I have to do all of this. Me, I, which is fine, right? We came here to experience what it's like to be in these bodies separate from everything else, but we're in this process of remembering that we are all connected, that there is a unified field of creation that we're a part of. And when we get out of our way and we actually allow ourselves to come into that alignment with the all that is, with Gaia, with the earth, with the other people, with the elemental forces of creation, with our highest self, with our multidimensional teams of light, then we wind up in a space of co-creation. And we have this ability to bring through so much more magic because we're not playing it from the small human ego level, which is really can only see basically this high. But when we connect in with all of that multidimensional goodness, we're seeing it from that 360-degree viewpoint. There is more availability for creativity, for alignment with our cosmic trajectory, for being in flow instead of fighting against, and for creating what is really, I think, in harmony with all instead of trying to force a particular trajectory. So there's an element of flow and surrender that comes through that is not always appealing to the human ego, but it's kind of the magic sauce.
Absolutely. So this makes me wonder, do you think that creation is a thing? Or would you say that co-creation is a thing? Are they both things, but co-creation is like the magic piece, and maybe creation is the more the ego-driven um, version of that?
That is such an amazing question. I believe that it depends on where your level of perspective and your lensing is and what you're perceiving it from. So when we zoom out to that quantum field, to that unified field self where we're fractals of the infinite, it's all co-creation. And when we are in our human self, we are able to create on a much more personal and individual level. Like, for example, our friend Chrissy created this, right? You can say she created that, but did she mine the clay herself? I don't think she did. I mean, it's possible. She's very resilient and resourceful, but there's elements of co-creation in that because somebody else would have set up the materials for her, right? Somebody would have inspired her. Somebody would have taught her and given her codes. I mean, anything that we do, if we really look at it, I mean, we are doing in harmony with other people and with the earth herself, who is giving the clay, right? Like, and bringing forward all of the materials that we need to make things. So no, I don't think when you zoom out to a higher perspective that individual creation is really possible. What do you think?
I agree, but I wanted to hear your answer on that. But I would say there was probably a point in my life where I did think that like I would have used the word I'm creating something versus co-creating it because I didn't have that perspective. And I probably had a lot more grip on what I wanted the outcome to be. And I wasn't in that flow state and I thought things should be a certain way. And um, just doing all the work I've done and coming to a place where I have a higher understanding of it, the co-creation does seem like what's more true and real to me in this moment. And I love that you use that perspective or that example because we really are always co-creating, even on like the physical level of creating art or something like that. And it's just dropping in for me right now. So I love creating digital art, and I've often said, well, I didn't create it because I've used elements that were already there. So it wasn't like a pure from scratch creation that I did. But that doesn't mean that I didn't put them together in a unique way that only I would do. And somebody, like, I don't know if somebody else would come up with the exact same combination that I did. So I still am creating something, but it's actually more of a co-creation because all of these pieces already existed, and it's a great way to look at, because in a way I felt like because I didn't come up with it all from scratch, I wasn't as valid or something as if I had created every individual piece. But whenever do we do that? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And especially as a generator in human design, I'm always responding to other things. So I think that actually that creation process, co-creation process works better for me because I'm responding to things that are there rather than having to come up with it on my own. Like, oh yes, I like this one. And I can like as an element or something of the design, and I can like have a visceral response to that particular thing instead of, you know, spending all the time coming up with each individual piece on my own. That seems boring and tedious. Doesn't seem as exciting for me. For some people that is, and if that is exciting for you, that's wonderful. But that is not what is exciting for me.
Yeah. And those people, though, when they are creating those elements out of, just their own mind, is it really, or are there thought forms that are coming in that are actually in that unified field? Do we actually have original thoughts, or is like the oversoul level actually directing those thoughts out and you're able to like tap into that and pull it down? I don't think we really have original ideas because we are so connected and because so much is able to be accessed from the other realms, the archetypal realms. Even if someone is putting a design element together, they're still pulling from ideas that they've seen either in real life or even in the imaginal realm, which again, is it really theirs? Who knows, right? These are questions that are really interesting, but it's why I always say I like to go beyond manifestation and into something that I call alchemical creation, which is basically co-creation, but it's also where you're like alchemically bringing together different parts, like you were saying, where you're bringing together different elements, you're bringing them into your body, you're infusing them with your codes, your wisdom, your experiences, and then you're creating that in the world with the acknowledgement that it's not just from you, it's from you plus the earth, the people you've learned from, your ancestors, the people that stood before you, making the materials. There's just, I think it's an impossibility to really isolate anything in our ecosystem and in our environment, both energetically and physically. So these creations are alchemized products of humanity expressing itself as creator beings in form.
That sounds so magical and epic. I love that. And it also takes off a lot of the pressure because I know myself and other people get so caught in that trap of like, I need to bring something unique and new into the world. And what I have to share isn't good enough. And it's because I'm saying the same thing as other people. And yeah, because we are all pinging off of each other as you were talking. It's like we're all pinging off of each other, sending all these little, yeah, thought forms and like inspirations to each other, and we all have our unique way of expressing those things. And I guess those are the codes, aren't they, that we're all sharing with each other.
It's really what we came here to do, was to share with each other and not live in isolation or pretend like we could, right? So the weirdness is right now there is, for our own stability, we're going to bring it back to what we said we're going to talk about, but we're always talking about creation, so that's awesome, is in order to be able to create, to manifest, to be an alchemist, to do all of these things that we want to do, that we came here to do, we need to have that really stable foundation. And that does include getting codes from other people, but it also includes, especially right now, ignoring them for a little bit when you need to, and really going in and being discerning with what is your energy as opposed to what is the energy of other people, places, things, all of that. So while we do need that interaction, that reciprocity, that give and take, the exchanging of codes, right now it is integral that we take breaks from that. The energy that is coming forward in September, and especially this week, everybody that I've spoken to is feeling it, is needing to slow it way down and stop digesting and processing the outer world for small or maybe larger chunks of time and getting really present in the body, coming into this moment, right here, right now, being with what is, right? Holding space for what's ever coming up. It might be that you need to move through feelings, move through triggers, move through grief, sorrow, frustration, whatever is arising. Or maybe it's relaxing into the emptiness or the spaciousness that might be inside you that I woke up to this morning on Monday. I just was awake early and I was like, wow, okay, I need to hit my mat. I need to my yoga mat, not just like punching a mat. get into my body, move slowly. And there was something so important about literally slowing things down and taking my time with like bringing all of my energy forward into this moment, into this now. I was calling all of me, come back to me, unplugging from anything that I had plugged into overnight or over the weekend when I had been with a lot of people. I was consciously unplugging, destroying and uncreating, and doing everything I could to clean up my field because my stability felt like it was more important than anything else in like this week, this moment, that morning when I woke up. Yeah, so that's what I was feeling with the energy today.
Interesting. So I'm thinking back to this morning, and I woke up feeling a little bit disconnected, a little bit tired because I was excited last night and felt a big impulse of energy and was doing digital art creation until like 11 on my phone, which is not the best thing for my sleep and my eyes, but I fell asleep anyways, and it was good, but I fell asleep later. So this morning, anyways, when I woke up, I was feeling just a little bit disconnected. And I always like to try to set my intention in the morning to connect in with how I want to feel for the day. And since it's Monday, I like to do that for the whole week. And I was like, ugh, I can't quite feel that. So I did one of my just favorite go-to um, connection meditations, and it has a body scan, and that is the piece that was so helpful, was to be really present and bring awareness into all the different parts of my body, because that is what brings you into the present moment, because your body is right here right now. And once I was able to do that, that's when I felt that, like, my heart felt, I guess I got in coherence with body, mind, heart, and soul after that, because I felt yeah, so much more present, connected, and able to process all the energies that are moving through us right now, and really felt a lot more joyful, alive, present, connected, and yeah, I was able to share all of that. But if I had just gotten up and like went about my day, I'd probably still be feeling like blah. And so taking that little pause in the morning, and it was only a 10-minute meditation that I did, and then I got to go for a walk and just bask in the glory of the beautiful changing leaves right now, and it was quite beautiful. So I'm not feeling that like intensity and everything at this moment, and I am feeling, yeah, I guess really strong and anchored, feeling very stable, and being able to hold that in the field for other people, so that if you're not feeling that way, that you can, connect energetically in with people that maybe are holding that for you right now, so that you can be that as well.
Hmm. When you're connecting or inviting people to connect energetically, I would also say for people not to connect in terms of like oh hey, I want to have that from you. It's rather this like she's holding this example in her field of what it looks like. So allow your body to process that and go, oh, that's what that feels like. I would like some of that too. Not from her. I'm going to create it for myself, or co-create it with, body, mind, spirit, and all of my multidimensional friends and resources that are there.
Yeah, that's what I meant.
I know. And I was just like, let's be specific. Specificity sometimes can be very supportive because it does happen at times when people do the opposite subconsciously, where they can be like, ooh, this person feels really good. And so they energetically will create this cord and basically siphon energy from them. And this is something we've all done in the past. This is something that happens on that subconscious level. And we don't have to play in those realms, and we don't have to play in that game either, because we do have the capacity to create it, or again, co-create it for ourselves. Mm-hmm. I definitely felt like over the last 2 weeks, I had been allowing myself, it was definitely a conscious choice, to indulge in practices that were not conducive to my stability. And I was noticing that I was low energy because of working with my daughter home. She had a couple weeks before school started where I didn't have childcare. I was in a little bit of overwhelm from that. And then because I didn't have the energy that I normally have, I wasn't choosing the things that give me more energy. Instead, I was choosing things that give me less energy, like maybe just scrolling on my phone, watching more TikTok, laying and like listening to videos. And that's totally fine to a point, right? But I was doing it in a way that I knew was kind of disassociating and disempowering. So I got to make that conscious connection and really ask myself at that choice point, is this how you want to show up? No, this is not actually serving you. And it's not allowing you to create the stability that you need. Speaking to myself, third person, it wasn't allowing me to create the stability that I need for my business, for my family, for my relationships, for my friendships, for the Soul Embodiment Summit that we are hosting next week. And I kind of felt like I didn't have enough time away this summer. So it was almost like I was giving myself like a little break, like a little vacation from having to be responsible for myself. And it was good because I got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm done with this. So I don't have any judgment or hate or negativity towards my actions, right? There's no beating myself up about it. There's an observation of that's what I was doing. I explored that. It was cool until it wasn't, and then I get to make a different choice moving forward.
Love that you were able to just be in such neutrality about it, because so often it can be really like a judgment, like, oh, why am I doing that again? What's wrong with me? And repeating this same old pattern. And yeah, that's everything just gets to be neutral. And once you observe it, you're like, okay, this was good. Well, I needed it, and now I don't need it anymore. And then being able to make that choice and not staying stuck in it just because it was like, certain, because that kind of stuff can just start to be really easy to fall back into. And yeah, so making those choices to do something different when you need something different is so key and so perfect. And yeah, we do have a lot coming up in the next week. So it is important to make those choices that will support you to have more energy. And so that's why I go for my walk every morning and on the days. So I'm like a fair weather outdoor person. I don't love to go for walks as much when it's not super nice outside. And last week we had a few days of rain and cooler weather, and I wasn't enjoying it as much. And definitely noticed if I'm not getting that physical activity every day. And my husband always laughs at me because he's like, you always say you need more hours in the day to work, and you're frantically working at the end of the day trying to get more stuff done. And he's like, but you also go for really long walks in the morning. I'm like, so admittedly, maybe my walks could be a little bit shorter, but I just get in the forest and it's like, I love it so much. But I do need to do that first for myself, because then everything for the rest of my day flows so much better. If I am not in that space of alignment and, taking care of myself first and filling up my cup first, then I don't do as good of work throughout the day. And I honestly think that I probably would, if I didn't have a child, I probably would be able to work from like 12 to 8, and that would be like my ideal time. And then I could have time in the morning. But my tiny human does not allow me to have that happen. And I definitely need to do it this week because my husband is away and I am solo parenting from Monday to Friday and working. And she's in daycare, so I just have to get her to daycare and then parent for a little bit at the same time. But it's still a lot when you don't have the other person there. So I do need to do all the things that are really supporting me and filling my cup so that I can give from overflow. And she has been extra clingy lately, so she is needing more of me as well. So yeah, we need to give ourselves permission to show up for ourselves first, because if we're not doing that, we're not going to be useful to anybody else.
Yeah, and when we're feeling overwhelmed and stressed, the tendency, especially I know for me, has been to drop the things that serve me the most. When I'm really busy, it would be to drop things like physical activity because I don't have time. And that has gotten me into so much trouble energetically that it can be hard to pull yourself out of that hole then, and you don't have the energy to start. So allowing yourself to continue the momentum, I think, is really supportive. But if you don't have any momentum, then it takes so much more energy to cultivate the practices that really support us. And I think that's one of the things that I fell into over The summer was I was staying up a little bit later. I was spending more time at the end of my day, and I'm kind of useless. I'm not going to do the things that really support me at the end of my day. I'm going to just want to watch TV or like read Facebook. So staying up late for me definitely influences and impacts my ability to take care of myself in the morning. And I'm too tired to wake up at 6 a.m. and get in all of the things that I would like to do to support myself for my day. And then the cycle just continues, right? So we need a pattern interrupt, an algorithm interrupt to get us out of what has been. Because otherwise, our momentum just carries us. It's like we talk about the downward spiral or the upward spiral of actions and influences that really support us. So, what really shifted for me was I took Friday night and Sunday to be part of the gratitude team for a belief repatterning event in Edmonton. It was a flip your switch, and I'm a belief repatterning practitioner, so I was able to go and show up and support some people who were learning that amazing technique. I was also there in person, and I was able to get some hugs, and I was able to connect with friends, and I was off of social media and my phone at 99% of the day. And it filled me up, even though sometimes those events, it can be kind of tiring. You're there from, like 8 a.m. till 6 o'clock, and it seems like it's a huge extra part of your day. It filled me up to the point that I was able to do everything I needed to do and then some that evening to set myself up for the next day. And then today I woke up and I'm like, I have all of the energy at 6 a.m. to go and to do the things for me. And it has made a world of difference in just that, like those 2 days to unplug from how I had been. So if you're in this space, like it's like I was last week, it's like, what can you do to make things different? What can you do to switch it up? What can you do that's out of your normal routine and patterns and habits to interrupt the programming that you are playing out? And it could be as short as, half a day, really, to switch things up.
You've given me that advice before, for lack of a better word. You've asked that question before to me when I've felt like I've been stuck. And it is so helpful to like, I did simple thing like listening to a different type of music when I was doing the dishes or driving a different way home from daycare drop off than I normally do, or walking a different way. Like it doesn't have to be huge things, but just the intention of doing something differently and doing a few small things can make such a big difference because you're in that energy of changing things up.
Yeah. And it's interesting because one would think that in order to create a really stable foundation, you would need to be doing the exact same things, right? We hear about like having your morning routine and doing the same things and making sure you do your meditation and the gratitude journal and your yoga and your strength training and your walk and you're getting outside and you're this, like really we would need 6 or 7 hours to actually do what we're supposed to do at the beginning of every day to set ourselves up. But that actually is detrimental to humanity at this point. We are breaking out of old programs. So having too much repetition actually is not going to help us move forward. So we can create the stability, the foundation, the structure, the routine, but change things up inside of it. So we can have that divine masculine structure, but it's supporting our beingness and the divine feminine that's in everybody. This is not a male female thing. We each have both of these sides to allow us to have that flow. So checking in with your intuition, what is it that you need today? You had an interesting experience with that about your walks not that long ago. Do you want to
Mhm.
maybe just remind, maybe people haven't heard that before?
Yeah, so I'm thinking what you're probably thinking of is for like about a week or so, I was going for walks to the same place and I was feeling great and amazing from doing it. And then one day I was like, oh, I don't feel like I should go for a walk today, but they've been working so well for me. I'm going to do it anyways. And then I went and it was like super muddy on the a spot and I totally fell and like hurt my arm and was pretty sore for a couple days. It wasn't anything super serious, but it like shook me up a little bit. And that is a perfect example of what happens when you do what you think you should do and not listen to the intuition that you're receiving because I think what I actually had wanted to do was go home and dance. And I'm like, but walking in the forest has been so great. I got to continue to do that. No, what is important is to listen to what your body needs, what your not even your body, your mind, your heart, your soul, whatever is speaking to you in that moment. Listen to what that needs and go do that thing, even if it doesn't make logical sense.
Right. That's the thing. Our brains like to go on autopilot. They like to run the old programs, and the program that they're going to run is the thing that supported us in the past, that kept us alive, especially if the program was something that was really helpful, like these beautiful walks. So it can be even harder to switch a program or to interrupt it if it's something that has supported you in the past, right? And to create the most stable foundation, we want to be in a space of alignment so we can hear the messages from body, mind, heart, and soul, and then take aligned action on them. Because what our mind thinks might be the most supportive thing to us really might not be. And there might be information coming from your higher self, your guides, from the earth herself, saying, hey, there's something else that's in front of you that's going to be supportive to creating your stability, your peace, or maybe the next piece of the puzzle moving forward for you. It might have the information that you need, right? Maybe it's the way you need to integrate today. Sometimes walking is amazing, and sometimes dancing is going to be more supportive to be moving through whatever it is you're moving through.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah, totally. And even sometimes I could get stuck in dancing and wanting to dance a certain way, and I'm like, oh, no, I actually like slow movement today, or other days it's like super fast and like it's such an important piece to really listen to what you need in the moment. And I want to say, I guess I studied that for a whole year when my word for the year was listen. And I really got, and you did that too, I think in 2013, when you spent a year listening to your body and what it really needed. And, we gave ourselves the time to not only learn to listen, but really integrate that so that it's part of our, um, you know, part of who we are. We don't always do it perfectly because we're humans and we forget. But but we do know, oh, we can fall back to that when we take that time to come into presence. And that's really such a big key is those pattern interrupts, taking time to pause and not just running on those loops and those um, yeah, just running those old programs, I guess, and autopilot. Like we want to be mindful. That's really what mindfulness is just being present and aware in each moment. And, that present state is that. And actually, I just feel like sharing now, when I was on my walk today, I had a beautiful download of what presence is, and the words that came through are presence is connection with our divinity. And that's why it feels so, for me, so magical. I feel like when I'm truly in that present 0 point state, it feels so beautifully aligned. My body feels like tingles because I am embodied, body, mind, heart, and soul. And I am in that deep connection with my divinity. And I think anytime that we're disconnected and we reach for those things to make us feel happy, like the phone or like the dopamine hits or food or whatever it is, we're seeking that connection. And really what we're seeking is a connection to ourself and to our divinity. And if we're not paying attention and we're running on autopilot, we're not going to remember to, like, oh yeah, right, like, oh, spending 5 minutes meditating doesn't seem as exciting as this chocolate cookie in front of me right now. But I guarantee that once I meditate, I'll feel and breathe, I'll feel so much better than the cookie would have made me feel. And then if I still want it, maybe then I can have the cookie. And I'll probably enjoy it way more anyways, because I'll be present and conscious and really experiencing it rather than just like in my face to try to find that thing that I was looking for. And I really experienced the phone thing. I just have to say, the other day on Saturday, I accidentally put my phone on Do Not Disturb, and I kept looking at it because I have the habit of looking at my phone all the time, and there was no new notifications. And I wasn't like, oh, I didn't really consciously think about it, but I definitely noticed that I wasn't getting those dopamine hits. And then once I realized that it was on Do Not Disturb and I turned it back on and all the notifications came in, I was like, oh. It felt so good to have, like, I'm like, oh, there's all the dopamine rushing in again. So it's wild how much, yeah, how much pleasure we get from our phones without even realizing it until it's gone and then it comes back again.
Oh yeah, you just are speaking into, and let us know if you're watching live or in the replay, if you too have this experience with perhaps food and uh, the phone, right? With that instant gratification. And I will share that this has definitely been the thing that has held me back the most in my life, in that I have allowed to really impede my ability to be mindful and conscious in each moment. And it is that I like to zone out while I'm eating with a book or with my phone or with the podcast. And part of it, I think, is because I like to feel connected to other people. And if I'm like at home alone for lunch and I don't have someone to eat lunch with over Zoom, then I'm going to want to eat with like somebody on TikTok, and it makes my body feel calm and feel safe. But I also can take that way too far to that place of I'm feeling a little stressed, anxious, disconnected, a little unsupported, a little overwhelmed, a little stressy, depressy, whatever, especially at the end of my day when I'm tired and I don't have any more willpower. I will go and I will eat while I'm scrolling on my phone, and it's like dopamine, 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 maybe a little serotonin with some funny stuff that's happening. And I am not fully conscious and present. And I'll be like, oh, I didn't mean to eat 4 cookies. Let me know if I'm alone on that and if anyone else has ever done that. People are saying, yeah, love you too, Maria. Aw, we're getting lots of love. But Leanna's just asking, how do you put your phone on do not disturb? For me, it's like right up at the top. There's a little, you can use a DND and it's got like a circle with a bar through it, but airplane mode can work too. So just up on your navigation bar.
Yeah, for I have a Android phone and it's the same for me.
Yeah.
I don't know about iPhone.
No, but I think most of them are like that pull down menu at the top where you can make it vibrate or you can have it on phone calls because yeah. And actually in another group that I'm in, I was actually just challenged to spend 8 hours off of my phone this week consciously. And what the person was doing, I'm sure I can say her name, Caitlin Scott, who's going to be presenting at the Soul Embodiment Summit, Caitlin of Healers Rising, which is a membership community I'm a part of. She was saying to lean into the discomfort of it, those twitchy feelings when you notice that you're not getting that dopamine, to lean into it and like really get in there and feel it. Because if you just distract yourself from those feelings with something else, then they are going to stay under the surface. They're going to stay stuck. And part of creating stability, especially in September, this is part of my messaging for the energy of September, was we need to go into the triggers. We need to go into the discomfort and be courageous enough to be like, okay, there's a feeling and I need to actually fully have it instead of stuffing it down, ignoring it with more ice cream, more cookies, more whatever it is. Just that's what I do. And live through that. And then when we live through it and we survive it, and we go, oh, okay, that feeling of discomfort actually was not as bad as I expected it to be, typically, right? Now, if you're moving through big trauma, please don't do that on your own. Please find someone to hold space for you, especially someone who's trained in that work. I'm talking about the little things, not the huge things to dive into on your own.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying that because that's such an important piece. Um, Doing that big trauma work is something that you definitely want to have support with somebody that's trained in resolving trauma. But yeah, that little bits of discomfort, like that's what I was kind of feeling when I wasn't aware that I was feeling it when I wasn't checking my phone and didn't see the notifications, but I was like, oh, that's weird. And then eventually I saw my husband typing on a phone and he's like, oh, it's in this group chat we're part of. I'm like, well, I'm not getting the messages. What the heck? And then realized, I'm like, oh. So I actually think I was a little bit annoyed that I wasn't getting the group chat messages that he was. So yeah, there's so much like all of those uncomfortable feelings, the little things, uncomfortable emotions, those thoughts, they're all just there trying to tell us stuff. If we can be in that neutral place and just view it as like, oh, this is just information, it's something that is being brought up for me to be felt and processed and dealt with, then as long as if you're able to clear those things as they come up as often as you can throughout the day, it really helps us to become that clear channel so that we can process all of the information that is coming through at this time, because there is so much. And if we're not doing that, then there becomes this backlog, and then it starts to create that downward spiral, and send you to do the things that are maybe not so supportive for you. So it's kind of like it's necessary to be always as present as you can, not always, because nobody's ever going to do it all the time, but it's necessary to be as present as you can with all those little irritations that are coming up so that we can have that strong stability and foundation and navigate these wild times we're living through.
Yeah. And that's not to say that you don't ever get to like rest and chill out or like watch TV, watch a movie, watch TikTok if that's what you're choosing to do. But when you do it consciously, when you're like, okay, I'm going to consciously take 30 minutes, an hour to watch this and be fully present and engaged in it, that's a very different and much more restful experience than the disassociated scrolling or eating or numbing out that I can often fall into when I'm feeling like there is a backlog of stuff that I have not been willing to look at. And it just it's pressing. So I get more uncomfortable. So I go, I don't want to look at that even more. And the downward spiral happens, and it takes more effort, or that pattern interrupt, the algorithm interrupt, there's something different to shift you out of your normal routine, the normal habits and thoughts and beings that you're doing. And that's the easiest way, I think, to shift it, is to, instead of having to make this huge force of will changing your behavior, just do something that's going to take you out of your normal and bring you into consciousness, into present. When you do things that are different, then your consciousness comes online, instead of running all of the subconscious programming. And it's just so much easier. So if you're finding that the sheer force of will shifting is not happening for you, what can you do that's different? What can you do that's going to take you out of the routine? It doesn't have to cost any money. Like Nicole was saying, could be walking in a different route, brushing your teeth with your other freaking hand. Do something weird and different.
Mm-hmm. And honestly, like, it doesn't have to be those small things are probably even better than trying something. Well, they are, I guess, even better, because if you're thinking like, oh, I need to change the entire way I do my life, well, that's overwhelming, and that's going to be way too much. If you just do one thing at a time, a little thing, I think you'll be surprised how much it will shift things. I know I was when I first tried that out, when that idea was introduced to me. It shifted so much.
Mm. Yeah. I also like big things sometimes. Like, that's why I love retreats. That's why I love traveling. That's why I love going and meeting up with people. And I feel like over these last 2 years, or however long COVID's been happening, that has been the hardest thing, is to really get out of the rhythms that you've created. And so we're really finding that now there aren't as many opportunities that are available for at least us to meet up. Or maybe I'm just telling that story and we're choosing not to, because really, when I look at it, I could be making more choices to meet up with people. We're not banned from doing that right now. But there's also real life considerations, right? We both have tiny humans, and you can't go out every night. You can't always spend time away from them, right? But it's like, what can you do? How can you get creative within the bounds of what your responsibilities are?
Mm-hmm. And ref- having that perspective is so important, because that's like where you could fall into the like, oh, life is happening to me, I don't have any choice, I don't have, because I have all these responsibilities, I can't do anything. And that's a fixed mindset has never helped me and gotten me further along. So having that open mindset and being creative is super important to seeing like what possibilities that you get to do that you could do to, there's just such a different energy between those two things. And I guess it's really the difference between feeling like a victim or feeling empowered to create change in your own life. And there's no judgment for either one, because I used to play, and it's still there sometimes, the victim game a lot, and I am it's just so much freedom and so much liberation when I know that I get to choose something for myself rather than feeling forced, like I uh, that something's forced upon.
Yeah. Did you notice I stopped myself? That's the thing. I still run those old programs sometimes too, even though I consciously have created new neural pathways that are more empowering. And it's okay because you can have those thoughts and you just notice if you practice and you bring enough consciousness to them that you go down that road and you're like, oh, actually, that doesn't feel good. It felt tight and crunchy and inaccurate. It's like I am telling myself the story in this moment that it is so hard and that I can't, right? And that was the program that I'm realizing now that I started running through the pandemic that made it hard to shift into the, oh yeah, we can do more now. Because it was like, you have to stay at home, you can't go out. For a long time where we lived, it was illegal to meet up with friends. It was a lot. And that happened for, gosh, like 8 or 9 months. And by the time we started to have things open up, I realized it was tough to even like believe that I could because I couldn't for so long. Those old patterns, those old algorithms that my brain was running, that got used to running, I had to surrender to them to be okay with it, were still there. And so I just noticed that I get to destroy and uncreate all of that old programming because it's not our current reality. Right?
Mhm.
And I get to choose to make more time to do these things if that feels aligned for me. I'm also noticing that I had not been doing that over the last few weeks because I felt like I didn't have the energy. And that's because I wasn't taking full, amazing care of myself. And I was doing that thing where I was spending all of my time disassociating, letting that backlog come through. So it was that downward spiral. So the algorithm interrupt, back up we go again without judgment. It doesn't have to be a wrongness. It doesn't have to be a, oh my God, I suck. I can't believe I did that. I do it all the time. We all do, right? And the trick is just to continue to catch yourself with that loving compassion and be like, I'm doing something that doesn't actually feel good. Let's do the thing that feels good, even though it's slightly more work.
I love that you brought it back to saying that like it's not wrong, because when I took the trauma course recently that I was in, the teacher Shelby Lee, she would talk about how when her clients were like came to her in a disassociative state, she would be like, "Oh, that's okay. Like, there's nothing wrong. Where are you right now? Can I go with you?" And they'd be like, "What?" So she was actually kind of like, doing that pattern interrupt thing, because probably most people, when they're in a disassociate, I can't say that word, disassociative state, and they were, maybe around other people might have made it wrong, like, oh no, let's fix you, let's try to figure out what's going on here. And no, it's okay, it's all okay, it's just information, and you get to choose what you want to do with that information. So once you're able to drop out of that judgment of anything really, it frees you up from so much and gives you, it's so empowering, I guess, is really what I'm trying to say, is if you're in that neutral state and you're not judging yourself for what you're doing and it's just information, you just get to do that, like what we talked about last week, choosing your own adventure. Where do you want to go next?
That's what's made the biggest difference in my life over the last 3 years, I would say. Belief repatterning really supported me in turning the inner critic. I had a really loud one who expected perfection and had really high standards for my existence, turning that into a coach who was neutral but skewed to the positive because that's just how I prefer to play. I have never actually got anything done more effectively, more efficiently, better by beating the crap out of myself. It doesn't work with my child. Like, it doesn't work with me. We're not actually motivated by people yelling at us or kicking our butt, right? Like, I mean, sometimes you are. Sometimes it's really okay. I mean, in general, sometimes I need someone to say, like, like, you can do it. Like, come on, don't give up when I'm, like finishing that last superset at the gym or something. That's different. But when it comes to saying that we suck for what we are doing, that only drains our energy further and makes it more difficult to make a shift and change. So when I was able to step into that place of neutrality, or being the coach instead of a critic to my own inner narrative, there was this spaciousness and ease with which I could flip the state. I could flip the switch of my thought process into something that was going to help me without going like, but you should have done it sooner, right? But why, like, better. How dare you? Like, all of that collapses your energy field and makes you feel small and disempowers. Whereas, the neutrality keeps the freedom. And then, like I said, when I skew it slightly to the positive, like putting the cheerleader or the coach in there going like, you know what, you can totally do it because you've done it in the past and that's totally okay. You're not starting from square one. You've got tools, you've got techniques, you can make this happen easily. Then it's like, oh, cool. Yes, I can. So the way that we speak to ourselves in these states when we're flipping it over really matters. Have you been an asshole to yourself when you've been in those places before? Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was my year of, so after I learned to listen, that was my year of softening. Was I learned to hear that inner critic and not just like accept that it was part of me. I realized I'm like, oh hey, I don't need to like be this mean to myself. And then when I actually listened to all the different things I told myself, wow, I was a fucking terrible person to myself. Like, I cannot believe the things that I would run. And sometimes I would just, once I like learned to be more neutral and like just hold it as like, okay, and realize that it was really just a trauma pattern kind of running out. And like, I would free journal whatever like I wanted to say to myself. It was like the most vile, hateful, like full of F bombs, like just bleh. So I learned to like allow that to be, put it on paper and like connect with this like wise, compassionate, caring version of myself that could, wrap myself up in love and be like, yeah, it makes sense that would say this to yourself because you didn't know how to process this thing that somebody said to you when you were like 3 and you still are holding on to all of that and it's okay. So I guess reparented myself and allowed it to be there. And as soon as I gave it a voice and let it be spoken, it just all kind of dissolved and dissipated because that's all it needed ever was just to be heard. And now yeah, I've let so much of that go and I don't have those. Occasionally, I thought like the really harsh ones will still come up, but doing that work and alchemizing, I guess, all of that has been such a huge, huge, huge key. Like I feel like every time I say something like that's such a huge key, like there's all these important keys, all these important codes, all these important things that we can learn. But there is so many different things, and but being a coach is imperative to living a happy life, I think.
Yeah, to be able to have a stable foundation, you can't be a jerk to yourself all the time. The people that spend their energy beating themselves up for what is going on, or for what is in the past, or for what they haven't done, or for anything, are not stable. Like if you are one of those people, if you're able to beat yourself up and also you are super stable emotionally, physically, spiritually, all of that mentally, let me know. I'd love to be proved wrong, but I have not ever seen it before. And for myself, when I was able to do that process as well, the reparenting, the learning how to speak with the same voice that I would speak to a friend, to myself, changed everything. All of a sudden, I wasn't rocking my own boat right? Like that's the thing. Life gives you enough challenges. You don't need to like rock your own boat at the same time. So we give ourselves more stability and create just this deeper foundation for being able to find that 0 point, that presence, that place of inner peace, which is essential to be able to access, to be able to fully tap into your manifestation and creation potential. If you're just berating yourself for your stupidity, then you can't access those realms of connection, of creation, of your like multidimensional essence, because it's crushing your energy field. So all you feel is you, and you feel separate and you feel divided. I feel like you were speaking into it earlier, that presence, that 0 point feels so connected. And it's like the opposite of the feeling of the beating yourself up, right? They're different vibrational frequencies. You can't hold both of them at the same time. And it feels so good because when you were in that place of stability and peace and presence in neutrality, just with the is, this is right now. And we're not thinking about the past. We're not thinking about how we screwed up. We're not thinking about the future. We're not thinking about all the things we shouldn't have done, but we just are. That is the most stable place to create from. So for this month, for this week, for this now, what are the shifts that you can make so that you can begin to practice accessing that place? It doesn't have to be something that you can get to right away, right? It does take practice. We got to follow the triggers in, clear those out, do the nervous system healing work, and then cultivate the time to practice it daily. It's not a one and done. That's the annoying thing. It's like the dishes. It's that psychic hygiene. It's what we have to do, what we get to do every day if we want to have that stable place to create our day from. So, yeah, I mean, there are so many ways you can do it. We've shared lots before, but you get to listen to your intuition, right? Don't think that just because today taking 3 breaths dropped you into that place, that tomorrow it's going to be the same. You might need to go and sweat and run as fast as you can or something like that, right? It's going to be different all the time, but creating the space to listen to your body or what it's sharing with you that it needs is going to be, I think, the fastest way there that I know of.
Absolutely. And this is actually kind of what I'm going to be talking about at the Soul Embodiment Summit next week. My session is presence to co-create your reality. So we're going to, I don't know, we're going to do whatever we need to do to come into presence. So that may be like moving and shaking or dancing or toning or whatever it is that we need to do in the moment. We will do that. And then being able to access that place where you're in alignment, body, mind, heart, and soul, where there is nothing else except for you. You're outside of time and space. And then we will do something to help us connect in with what it is we want to access, what it is we want to create in our life or co-create. And from that place, that's so powerful of a place to co-create, as we've already talked about this whole whole session.
Yes.
Can't wait to share that with everybody.
It's going to be so good. So next week, instead of a regular illumination series live, we're going to be doing the opening ceremony for the Soul Embodiment Summit with Nina Infinity. And that's going to be happening inside the Radiant Evolution Collective. So I want to drop the link for you to register for the summit. We'll do that in both the YouTube notes and here in the comments. And this summit is going to be incredible opportunity to get more skills to create the stable foundation for your manifestations and creations, and to bring all of your galactic soul magic down to earth so that you can be a badass manifester, so that you can co-create with that cosmic trajectory, right? With the all that is, instead of doing it from that smaller ego place. The speakers we have are so magical. We do have Caitlin Scott coming in from Healers Rising. Like, I know she is a ambassador to the Interstellium Alliance. She is a channel and also a really badass business person who hosts the Healers Rising Academy. And we also have Debbie Solaris, who is an Akashic Galactic Records reader, who is going to be supporting us in bringing in some of that galactic soul magic into this reality so that we can bring the future trajectories, or those multidimensional trajectories of what a lot of us sort of like remembering that we have access to, and actually start to live from that place. So many other amazing people that are going to be talking about alchemizing trauma and manifesting with the divine feminine, bringing the divine feminine and masculine into balance to create, working with all of the different elemental forces of creation. We're going to be talking about creating with our businesses and with life and with the universe and with all of the magic that's available to us, and doing it in really deep connection with community, the community of change makers and visionaries and the people that know they're here to actually shift things on the planet, but also recognize that you have to do the inner work first, right? Like change makers who know it's an inside out job, and that we get to be the examples of that in our own life before it can ripple out into the world at large. Cannot wait. So it's going to start Monday, September 20th, and we're going to run until September 24th. But instead of having everything live here on the public Facebook and YouTube, it's going to be inside the joyevolution.group, which is the Radiant Evolution Collective. It's going to show up as the Soul Embodiment Summit on Facebook now as well, because we changed our group name. But that fun place is going to be like an amplification center for all of your magic.
We've got the link in the comments there if you'd like to register. And if we are also hosting an equinox ceremony next Wednesday. And if you're not able to attend that one live, that will be on Zoom. So make sure you actually register through the registration page. So if you want the replay on that one, you can get it.
Awesome. Well, conscious creation, conscious co-creation, alchemical creation, manifestation magic, it all has to start from that stable foundation. So we get to take this time, especially this week coming up before the equinox portal, to do what we need to do for our body, mind, heart, spirit, and soul to get into alignment so that we can make the most of what is coming through. So if that means disengaging from social media and spending more time with you, do that thing, but let yourself be guided, not by what feels easiest in the moment, but what you know is going to be the most supportive thing for you.
And yeah, if it feels like a should, that's interesting. I guess if it feels like a should, then it's probably not what you should do. But if you feel but I also feel like there's some paradoxes there, because you maybe know that you should do something that's more supportive for you as well. So if you feel like that, then it's important to come into it as taking that time and thinking about like how can I invest in myself right now? You're thinking about your time as an investment. So if you're investing your time into zoning out and that feels good, then do that. But if you want to invest your time into doing something that you know will give you more energy, then do that.
Yeah, there is nothing wrong with zoning out for a bit because you need some integration time. But if you do it consciously and you say, like, I'm committing to zoning out in this time, those are the words of Jason Estes, is like, commit to it before you do it, and then you're doing it with consciousness. It's helpful. So what can you consciously do to create in the moment for you? And don't do it just because someone else said you should. I think that's the difference you were looking for, the paradox. It's like not because an old program is telling you should or society is telling you should. It's like, what is your body asking for? What is your spirit asking for? What is your heart asking for? Like sourcing it from the self as opposed to something else. Right? Because if it's just because you should, like, screw that noise. We're destroying and uncreating all of that jazz. And that's been one of the greatest freedoms that I have found over the last really year as well, is stop shitting all over myself and allowing myself to be in that space of what is the most aligned thing for me right now, even if it doesn't make sense. It doesn't have to make sense here. Okay. It's got to feel like the right thing for you. So We're going to continue to meet ourselves where we're at with love and with compassion in that neutral place. And I really hope that we'll see you all at the Soul Embodiment Summit next week. Okay.
We'll see you
Bye.
all there.
Yeah. Bye, gorgeous souls. See you
Bye.
soon.